kind of a
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a meeting of the North Penn School District Board of School Directors, January 15th, 1998. The meeting tonight is our regularly scheduled action meeting. We will also be presenting proclamations to outstanding students. This meeting is being videotaped for community cable channels. Individuals attending this meeting and intending to speak to the board should be aware that they are being videotaped. In order to meet the requirements of the Pennsylvania Sunshine Law, it is necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak to the board during the meeting. To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential that those planning to address the board come to the microphone and state their name and address. Members of the audience are asked to limit their questions and comments to no more than 5 minutes. This limit will permit time for all those who wish to speak to the board to do so, and whenever members of the audience exceed this time limit, the board president may ask the individual to yield the microphone to the next speaker, and this is in reference to Board Policy 8344.2. Okay, at this time. Oh, I know.
Take a breath.
Well, Mrs. Krieger, why don't you lead us in a flag salute since you have
comments.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't know. Makes day.
Okay, members of the board, I recommend approval to appoint Dorothy Hatfield as board secretary pro tem for this evening.
So moved.
Motion by Schilling, second by Sierpinski. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. And thank you, Mrs. Hatfield, for being with us this evening. Again, for the second month in a row. Okay, again, board members recommend approval of the minutes of the 753rd meeting held on 12/18/97 as circulated.
So moved.
Motion by Sierpinski, help me.
Second.
Second by Mosey. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, parents, this is the time that board members enjoy the most, believe it or not, and it's an opportunity to meet students we don't normally get to see on a daily or even a monthly basis, and an opportunity to present proclamations to them for outstanding accomplishments. And we have with us tonight the most appreciated and very esteemed Mr. Howard with us tonight, if he'd come forward.
Before you start, I think it's important to acknowledge what a great accomplishment a large band in a large high school has made. This band is perhaps the best band in Pennsylvania, not merely this year, but historically, and its tradition of excellence, I think, is a matter that gives us all great pride. And to accomplish what these kids have accomplished, and their sponsors and directors and adult advisors, is much like an iceberg. We see what's above surface, that's clear, there's good publicity, and there are the performances. What we don't see are the hours and hours of hard work. The time put in that begins in the hot month of August and proceeds to the chilly weather of November. And that is as much as great athletes put into their sport. This is an extracurricular activity that excels. We're really proud of it. Ted, we want you to tell you about we want you to tell us about the senior leadership here and the accomplishments, including the governor's letter and the legislature's proclamation, which this band has received recently. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Bose. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This year, the Marching Knights competed in one of the most demanding schedules in Marching Knights history. In addition to their weekly schedules, they competed in 4 major championships. The first championship being a Bands of America Championship, which was held at Rutgers University, and the Knights took 2nd place in that competition. Several weeks later, they traveled to Lancaster Catholic High School for the Cavalcade Bands Championship, and there they placed 2nd as well. And the next week, they traveled to Giants Stadium, one of the most beautiful stadiums to perform in, where they took 1st place and swept all caption awards. And that is quite an accomplishment considering the level of participation of the bands there. And I might add, in that complete circuit of the Cadets of Bergen County circuit, they have over 200 bands competing over a period of 3 weekends, and the Marching Knights scored the highest of all the 200 bands there. And most recently, we're still recovering from the effects of our trip to Phoenix, Arizona, where we traveled, we did some sightseeing, and we performed in beautiful Sun Devil Stadium. At approximately 2 o'clock on Monday, December 29th, the Knights took to the beautiful stadium and performed one of the most magical shows an audience will ever see down there. They were awarded 4th place. In addition, our percussion line took 1st place honors. Our auxiliary line took 2nd. And most importantly, we talk about throughout the season not necessarily getting 1st place. Excuse me. We talk about performing and performing for your audience. And we were honored not just to receive this Audience Appeal Award, which the audience, whatever band the audience should win, whatever band the audience thinks should win, they award it to that band. And we were awarded that, and it came from approximately 10,000 people standing all at once at the end of our show. And it's a moment that our Marching Knights will never forget. I know it's a moment I will never forget. And unfortunately, I don't know if you can feel the energy, but at that stadium, it was just it was a beautiful moment. And after that, we did went up to Grand Canyon and did some other things, but that was just a special season for us. And I just wanted to thank the music aides for all their support. I want to thank all the wonderful music teachers in this district, and the administration, Dr. Cotter, and most importantly, my beautiful wife, Maria, and my 2 boys for their support over the season. Without their help and support, I don't know if I'd be standing in front of everyone right now. I am going to introduce to you the 4 representatives of the Marching Knight. First of all, a senior in the trombone section. He is the band president, Mr. Ben Ingram, who I might add will be going to MIT. He got into MIT based on my recommendation from the music department. Next, Katie Lass, the band fund president. The 2 drum majors of the Marching Knights. The 2 drum majors of the Marching Knights, both seniors as well, Kathleen Love and Mr. Greg Fox.
And a certificate of merit for the director.
Ladies and gentlemen, I guess who much is given, much is expected. And don't go anywhere, Mr. Heller. I need to ask you for just one more thing, just a little assignment. I'd appreciate if you would coordinate with Dr. Cotter and Dr. Hassler. Would you please arrange for awards such as these to be given to all members of the band in light of all of the accomplishments this year, and your music aids. And that would be an event that we can have televised and held at the high school so that there's appropriate seating and that everybody be the benefactor of an award like these students have received this evening.
We can make that arrangement quite easily. Okay. Thank you very much.
We will do that. Members, if you'd walk around and shake our hands, we would be very proud.
Congratulations. Good luck at MIT.
Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause. Standing ovation. Okay, ladies and gentlemen and parents, there will be announcement on the time and date of that awards ceremony for all students in the band. Okay. Committee reports, facilities, buildings, and grounds. Mr. Mosey.
Yes, the only thing I would like to say is that you should have received in your packets, a schedule and outline of when we will be having meetings. They will be at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There's a very good reason for that. I did have to coordinate this with Mr. Schilling and with Mr. Hill, and also with Mrs. Scher, who are, Mr. Schilling and Mrs. Scher will be serving on the committee with me. It's the most convenient times, and also because of what is going on at the high school and with the NAP project coming up. It's the most convenient time for Mr. Wood. He is practically living at the high school at this point in time. He's very busy getting the Act 34 hearing ready for NAP. That's why you'll notice we did not schedule a January meeting, because Mr. Wood asked me if he could possibly have the extra time this month and if we would postpone our first meeting until February, and I was more than happy to comply with that. Any questions?
Mr. Mosey, I appreciate that, you putting a schedule together so quickly and taking into consideration the work schedules. I think as chairman put their schedules together, that there has to be deference for people that have employment, especially those that are working out of these immediate local area. So when you put those schedules together, please consider all members of your committee and that their employment schedules be worked around. Any questions for Mr. Mosey? Again, Mr. Mosey, thank you very much.
welcome.
Community Services and Policy, Mr. Shapinsky.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight we offer for the first reading Board Policy 6166 as distributed in the agenda for the public and for the board members, of the Internet Acceptable Use Policy. And also we'd like to announce that the Community Service or Community Relations and Policy Committee has set up for public committee meetings the first Thursday of every month at 7 o'clock at the ESC. End of report, Madam.
Mrs. Hatfield, please note that for the record, and that would go out in any out office or outsourced correspondence to the community and to personnel, that those committee meetings will take place on that pre-arranged schedule. Mr. Shapinsky, could you just cap your committee meeting from the other night, please? It was a very good meeting. If you could just cap it quickly.
We offered public comment on the acceptable use policy, and the other topic that we offered was the change in format in the district newsletter that we send out. We will have further discussions on the change of that format on February 5th, which is our next committee meeting. We offered the public additional input besides the regular board meetings, and we encourage people to come out and try to give us as much input as we can. This is at the ground floor of when we develop and design different policies, programs, and whatever we can do. So please, if you have a great interest in this area, please come out and join us and offer your opinion.
Okay, any questions of Mr. Shapinsky?
Quick question from what's here at my table. I have the first reading of policy 6166, Internet Acceptable Use Policy. The green sheet attached to it dated December 16th, and it was my understanding that this policy was not even available up until the very day of our board meeting last Tuesday.
That's correct.
That's correct.
The recommendation was written on the 16th of December. The first drafts were circulated at that time. The drafts have gone through a number of revisions, including the most recent one where the solicitor reviewed the draft and made suggested changes through Mr. Shapinsky, and we received those, I believe, yesterday, and therefore have included the most recent draft for the board's consideration tonight on the first reading.
Okay, so essentially we just took a green sheet from a previous draft and from a previous
Well, the green sheet.
initiative and then attached it to
Well, the
this.
green sheet was for policy.
Okay.
And-
Okay, I just was
Initial
concerned that there was
request was made.
alteration since then, because it's strange to see something from December coming forward on this new one. And I wonder which one were we dealing with now, because it's also a little different in appearance.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shapinsky. K-12 curriculum, Mrs. Krieger.
Thank you. In regards to the technology integration plans for the incorporation of the Harcourt Brace software to support integration of technology with the new language arts program will be completed by March 1st, '98, including the software, hardware, and staff development needs. A cost projection as well will be included, and that will be forwarded to the technology committee. This plan will serve as a model for the technology integration with other curricular areas as well. We will continue to extend the application of mathematics and science software to support our current curriculum. MISE funds support this integration in grades K through 8. Title VI funds help support this technology application in grades 9 through 12. Identification of K through 12 literacy skills and software and other curricular areas will be worked on throughout the year, utilizing the language arts, math, and science work as a model. Under Health and Physical Education Review, we have formed the steering committee for the Health and Physical Education Review process. There are 2 board members serving on that steering committee, Mrs. Mengel and myself, the Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Hassler. We have department chairs from the Health Department, Physical Education Department, and the nurses, being Ginny Ward, Joel Hoffman, Jim Parrish, Brad Carroll, and Sally Kaufman are also on the steering committee, as well as various elementary classroom teachers yet to be appointed, if you will. Our tasks include at this time the review of the existing curriculum in all those areas, the alignment with any new standards in their regard, the identification of issues, concerns, and other problems with the current curriculum, and the review of current materials and future recommendations for upgrades of those materials. The K through 12 Curriculum Committee, our first meeting will be on Thursday, February the 5th, to follow the technology meeting that evening at approximately 7 to 7:30 p.m. And at this time, I'd like to give the floor to Dr. Robinson to brief the board and the community in regards to curricular in-service, in particular tomorrow's in-service. Dr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mrs. Krieger. The board may recall that at the beginning of the school year, one of the major goals of the district was to work with a book called Results, written by Michael Schmoker. And to that end, we have spent in the curriculum department a considerable amount of time preparing staff for in-services related to that topic. Thank you. One of the advantages of working with a book like Results helps us recognize that meaningful teamwork, when combined with setting clear measurable goals and regularly collecting and analyzing performance data, constitutes the foundation for results, which would ultimately result in improved student performance. On Tuesday at the North Penn High School, the department heads, along with the school administrators and central office staff, conducted an in-service with all of the teachers at the high school, in which we worked with Results as it looked for performance assessment tasks and giving students giving teachers an opportunity to look at students' work with clear standards and expectations. And this is preparing us for what's happening in the state with assessment and standards. Tomorrow, we will replicate that in-service with the middle school teachers. And again, it's a teamwork effort with department heads, the school administrators, as well as central office staff. And these workshops will serve to better prepare our students for not only the PSSA, but the standards that the state will be setting forth very shortly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Krieger. And would you read into the record again for Mrs. Hatfield the date of your meetings for the curriculum?
First Thursday then.
Technology is at 6, community relations is at 7.
Okay, so 7:30.
7:30.
At 7:30. Okay, Thursday, February the 5th at 7:30. Dottie.
Okay, Mrs. Hatfield, we need all these for the advertisements we need to make. Okay, any questions of Mrs. Krieger?
Just one, Madam President.
Yes, ma'am.
You're going to coordinate with technology on curriculum initiatives. Can you copy the technology committee too? With any curriculum
Yes,
development?
please.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Good.
Good
Mrs.
point.
Krieger, that was a very good meeting the other night, the other afternoon for Health and Phys Ed. That was a great meeting. So thank you for,
Oh, our next meeting for that is January, but that's not an open meeting, but just to remind you.
Sure.
Our next meeting is
what is it, January?
January 20th, 3:40.
Okay, thank you. All right, special ed, student services. Mr. Brown.
There is one item on the agenda this evening which needs our approval. A contract is needed with Lincoln Center in Bridgeport, Pennsylvania for 3 students currently attending there and now residing in our district. End of report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Allen. Any questions of Mr. Allen?
Is this considered, I don't have the green sheet, is this alternative education?
Yes.
Yes, these are students that came into the district with an IEP to attend this school in Bridgeport. And basically, we just have to continue with the IEP until such time, as I'm told, that we can create our own IEP and see if we agree with what they have and maybe find an alternate school. But I'm also told that this is similar to Lakeside School, and currently we have all our slots filled at Lakeside. So we may not be making a change, but the situation is they came to us, they have the IEP, they're at the school, and we have to approve it.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Well, yeah, I do. Bill, you're saying for the IEP, they're actually on-site education at the Lincoln Center in
Yes.
Bridgeport?
Yes.
Okay, I've visited a number of these when I was assigned to special ed, and Judy and I went around, but Lincoln Center was not one of those of which we were actively.
From my understanding, we have not had students in the Lincoln Center in Bridgeport prior to this.
Because they resided in another district, that's what that district utilized. And
And they moved into our district?
yes, they were placed in a group home. And what we will do at the end of this year is evaluate the IEP, and then, based on that, probably make a recommendation if it's appropriate to move them into our facilities.
Well, you're evaluating the individual education plan, the IEP. What about the facility itself?
That's part of it. That's taking a look at what is most appropriate setting for that student.
Okay, are we required to maintain the services of the Lincoln Center, although it is not one of our traditional
We're required.
alternative ed programs?
We're required to continue to use it through this year, and then we can reevaluate it and, based on our findings, assign the students to where we feel is most appropriate. So no, we don't have to continue utilizing that setting.
But we are absolutely required for the rest of this year, even if we could find an appropriate facility.
Unless there be a change in the IEP.
Dr. Hassler, any chance for reciprocity of funds with their living someplace else and being placed in a group home here? Group homes are considered a temporary arrangement.
I'm not sure. I'll
And
check
if
with.
they're attached to either foster care, SSI, or an SS check, that funds be somehow received back to this district for providing services?
I'll follow up with Mr. Rusnak, our new pupil services director, when he comes on board next week. He's been involved in this to some extent.
This has come up many times, and there's kids that are placed here out of Philadelphia into foster homes, and Judy Clark was successful in being able to get money off of the Philadelphia School District because of that arrangement. Did you need? Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Allen? Or Dr. Hassler? Okay, Mr. Allen, thank you very much. Support services, you're on deck.
No report.
Okay, any questions? Finance, Mr. Sharp.
Only to say that we will be working to
Can't hear
prepare a
you.
budget
Thank you.
calendar in the near.
Can't hear you, please.
John would have to pass on the microphone.
Thank you.
We'll be working to put forth a budget calendar, hopefully to make it easier for all the rest of the board members to accommodate that schedule, since, it may be necessary to have that in mind as you're formulating all of your various committee meetings, since that's a very intense period of time as far as the months of March, April, particularly April and May, and June are concerned. However, we do intend to have our committee meetings at the last Tuesday of each month. The exact time is still under consideration. as we review the other schedules of those committee members that are serving. But we do intend to follow through with the last Tuesday of March in order to allow us to have our committee meetings and deliberate business in that committee in a timely fashion for committee of the whole. And outside of that, I have no other business to report.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Scher. Please be, I'm real concerned about Mr. O'Donnell's schedule with his working in Philadelphia. He is an accountant, he's a new member of the board. He does have a lengthy commute. Mr. Mosey has been most flexible and he's done a lot of service on committees. So when you put that schedule together, if you'd be really sensitive to Mr. O'Donnell, I appreciate it.
Yes, and that's one of the considerations, because Mr. Mosey himself has also asked for evenings. He also has a business that doesn't operate only by day. He needs to maintain some evening hours, and he is serving on so many committees.
Right.
So we're working to obliging both aspects.
Let's say 6 o'clock here, 6:15 here.
All righty.
Excuse me. Also on the finance, although we had not met, I'm not sure if this is the area to bring it up, but several weeks ago I asked Mr. Deddy to give me a copy of the last year's audit report. And I noticed that we had an unqualified letter on our cover page on the performance of our audit. I talked with Carol about it, and I've asked Carol if she could make it one of her goals this year to make sure that we get a qualified letter instead of an unqualified letter. And I've asked Mr. Deddy to explain briefly to the board the difference between qualified and unqualified letters so that we can have a cleaner audit. And now's the time to prepare for it rather than waiting until it's over with. Then it's too late.
To the committee or to the board?
No, I had asked Carol if she explained to the board. So this is one of her goals, that she would shoot for, so that we have a better audit, so we have a qualified letter instead of unqualified.
See how good you are?
That's an issue of the contract that's arranged for with the auditor himself. Usually the agreement of services, correct, Carol? The extent of the audit, the depth of the audit?
It's not to the extent of the audit, it's what we do and what we don't do in preparing for the audit. And
Right.
we fell short on a few points. So we shouldn't fall short on a few points, especially now that we're going to have the staff to do it.
The definition of a qualified versus non-qualified audit. The district has received a qualified audit for many years. Qualified audit simply says that there is a problem, that we can't certify this audit as an unqualified opinion because there is a flaw in some way the books are kept. For North Penn, that flaw is the method that we depreciate and keep track of our fixed assets. And we keep them at, and I get these confused, we keep them at market value on the books, and we should be keeping them at cost or historical value. In talking with the auditors and the state auditors also, that's one of the most common reasons that a school district would have a qualified opinion. And also exploring that further, the question was raised, is it worth or is there value to changing the way we keep track of our fixed assets? The opinion was it was not necessarily worth certainly going back in time and trying to adjust all of the charges or the expenses for fixed asset. Moving ahead, that's a decision that we collectively can make. There's a host of reasons, and I won't bore you with them, for keeping them at market value as opposed to historical value. And there's a host of reasons to do it the other way. We'll have to have that discussion at some point. The qualified opinion or the unqualified opinion is something that we would love to achieve. So we need to talk about that.
Okay.
We could do that probably at one of our finance committee meetings.
That's a long dated issue. I mean, that's been there since 1988 when I saw my first audit, the fact that it's at historical value as opposed to market, or market value as opposed to historical value. You take a school like Inglewood, it's basically listed as an asset at basic replacement value in our assets, as opposed to what that school could actually be put on the market for and sold at, given its age and its time and everything else. And I will say that I've spoke with many different business managers some from other school districts and other accountants that while it's not that common or advised in the private sector, government tends to go that route in its assets. And we can certainly discuss that in committee as to whether or not we want to revise our balance sheet, our assets and liabilities
I would
accordingly.
just like to clean up the financial statement so we have clean audit now that we have
Right.
staff.
I had-
But I've been there, Frank, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing.
I'm sorry, you finished?
Okay, I'm not necessarily disagreeing, I'm just saying that in seeking out the other opinions, it seems that that is the more traditional method within the school systems themselves. That doesn't necessarily make it, the most proper either.
Mr. Mosey?
Go ahead.
I just had one question, Mr. Daddy, if I may. In our, either last packet or the packet before, we received a preliminary budget schedule from you. I'm assuming, maybe I shouldn't have, did it come from your office?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Could you tell me where we are, because as of January the 6th, we were supposed to have a preliminary calendar given to the Board of Directors. Is there any reason why that was held up, or being held up?
Is that what's in your hand?
No, preliminary calendar is when we actually will be expecting to review certain subjects. Are you waiting for our first committee meeting? Is that what you're?
I'm not sure exactly what you're looking at. There's been several
What I'm looking at, I
drafts.
see November 17th cabinet discussion, December 1st cabinet discussion, December 8th review
That's
of
draft,
enrollment.
isn't it?
Right. But, okay. I got you. Thank you, Mrs. Craig. I do not have a question.
Mrs. Krieger answered your
You
question.
consolidated everything on one sheet, and that's what threw me. I apologize.
Any other questions of finance? Okay, thank you. Personnel, Mr. Hill.
Only thing regarding personnel, there's a number of personnel items on the agenda tonight that we recommend for approval. That's the end of that report.
Okay, the only other thing on the personnel I'd like to add is, Mr. Allen, thank you for continuing to serve and being with the Compensation Review Committee for Support Services. The secretarial portion of that list of all those members in the support service work groups are going to be pulled and placed with the Personnel Committee to be working with Dr. Miller and Dr. Bose on that piece. That is a weightier piece, and we're concerned that that review will bog down work that's going to be in those other areas. So I'm going to be pulling that, and Personnel is going to start some talks with Dr. Miller next week. Okay? Any other personnel, Mr. Hill?
No.
Okay, questions?
Yes, for Mr. Hill, I had spoken to you yesterday in regards to some issues along the same lines as the support services being in relationship to a specific area, and you had mentioned that you would bring that up for discussion this evening briefly, but I guess the more appropriate thing to do would be to bring those forward in a memo to you, to the committee, in relationship to job posting.
I think,
Yes.
so the public is a little confused what we're talking about here. We're using, there was some question related to how we post jobs, how we offer jobs, and how the whole process is handled. And there was some question, maybe clarification should be needed in that area. That would really fall under a review of the policy
The practice.
that we now have in that area, and any changes we want to make and related to that. So I would recommend that on the 5th, when we have that policy and your other meetings that night, that'd be an issue you bring forward to Mr. Shapinsky and get it out of my hair.
Okay.
Thank you.
No rest for the weary, Mr. Shapinsky. You got a lot of homework. Keep your homework sheet out. Okay, and Mrs. Krieger, the questions about posting has come up from
Yes.
other
Yes, I understand.
areas and avenues, and so that the whole picture's going to be looked at. Dr. Miller and I already talked about that
Okay.
today.
Great,
The
thank you.
policy and the practice. Any other questions of personnel?
Let me ask, is there any initiatives on the NPEA as far as getting together? Do we have any kind of, if not an exact date, timelines or any initiatives there?
I can't hear you.
With the NPAA? get
Okay,
together?
I was going to bring that up, but under the NPAA, they, as Dr. Bose had mentioned in the previous meetings, is that the NPAA and Dr. Bose and his staff are currently working together to put a merit plan together that is for our review. That process is still underway, and so until they have a plan that they feel prepared to give to us to look at, there'll be no, it's kind of on hold till that happens.
Okay, in follow-up of the last discussion we had at our work session where I asked that it be prepared for the board, the list of those administrators that have actually remained status quo for the 96, from the 96, 97 year through to this year. In other words, give us an exact picture of how many of those have actually been frozen in position and salary carried over from the previous year. And I think it's important to note that is approximately, it's in question, 23, 24 administrators out of our full administrative body has actually maintained the status quo in salary and position. And I wondered, has that information been shared with the MPAA leadership so they could also digest that and not necessarily have to duplicate the work? Perhaps they're already aware, we can assume that they are, but just so they know what base of information we too are evaluating as we come into these meetings and as we evaluate.
The answer to that is yes.
The amount of dollars. They have, it has been forwarded.
The same report that you have that listed the salaries, the current salaries and the salaries for previous years, so you can
Right.
see what the differences was.
The 96.
They have that.
Okay. All right, thank you,
Okay, any
Don.
other questions, personnel? Thank you, Mr. Hill. Would you like to continue on with legislative and technology?
Oh, I would love to. Legislative is, through the graciousness of my heart, I've accepted that, and
Yes.
took it from Vince's load, is that, I always want to help him out, is that the first legislative meeting will be held, I don't have the date in front of me, but it'll be held in Norristown in the next week or two, and I don't know the exact date, but I'll be reporting on that meeting once it's held. The main thing that's happening with legislature right now is the fact that they're starting the budgets. And of course, the budget is tied into the funding that we get, and we hope that they were as successful as they were last year in completing their budgets on time. So the distribution of the funding, while we get very little compared to a lot of districts, it's still nice to know what our funding is, so it ties in with our budget making, so forth. So that's their big push right now. There are a lot of bills in House related to teacher training, teacher reevaluation, and a lot of other things in that area, but those are still proposals and not anything to bring forward now, and we'll see what comes at the meeting this month. End of report.
Any questions, legislative?
Yes.
Krieger?
Just one, Mr. Hill, in regards to the copy of the fax that was sent from, who did this come from? Jess M. Stairs, Representative Stairs. And Dr. Bose, you forwarded to us?
Yes.
It's in regards, for the public's knowledge, it's in regards to the introduction of legislation in the very near future, creating a program of continuing professional education for teachers, educational specialists, and administrators holding state certification, and for the non-certified professional employees of charter schools. I'm just curious, I don't have a copy of this yet, I don't think very many people do, but I'm curious as to whether or not that means that our school district, should a charter school be cited or opened here in the future or whatever, if this district would then become responsible for providing continuing education through our tax dollars for those non-certified.
The answer to that is yes.
Is that?
That's how I understand it now.
That's what I thought.
But this, what you're reading there, and that is, it's very preliminary.
Yes.
And has not even put into to a bill yet, even to be discussed, to my understanding, at the House even.
Do you know, Don, if that was a part of the charter school legislation that passed?
Well,
Is there anything
the charter
other than-
school, as you realize, in the problem that Soderton had, and a lot of the editorials, and I don't purport to be any expert in that area, but the understanding that seems to be coming down on that is that all financial obligations still remain with the school districts,
Okay, that's
no matter
what I
how good or efficient they are or how bad they are. we still have the financial responsibilities, which goes back to the taxpayers.
I think we also have the administrative responsibility.
Well, that all ties together, right?
Yeah.
So you have all the responsibilities and little control. So that's why it's got a long ways to go before you see that getting off the ground, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Any other legislative questions? Okay, continue, Mr. Hill.
Technology. Let me say that technology is alive and well. And we had our first committee meeting this week, and as has been mentioned already, committee meetings will be on the first Thursday of each month, unless for some reason there's no need to have a committee meeting that night, but for right now, they're scheduled for the first Thursday of each month at 6 o'clock. And they'll be usually held in this room or some room in this building. So the public is welcome to that. We had our first meeting, as I indicated this week, which was a good meeting, good kickoff meeting, and the committee and some citizens got an input primarily as where we are and where we plan to be, to get us an update and give us some ground rules of where we are going and when we're going to get there. One of the items I'd like to bring you up to date in these different areas is that the Pantamation system that is going in this building, in other words, the technology or computer system, or however you want to describe it, that's going to replace the financial system that's in this building now, will not only take over all the financial of this building, but also take over all the personnel records of the students also, which was never handled by this central system before. That process is underway. The purchase order has been issued. We expect the contract to be signed at any time, but the work is proceeding, and we expect that work for the financial area to be online in July of this year. We expect the other piece, the student piece that I mentioned too, the student accounting and so forth, to be online in September of this year. Let me not hesitate to say those are ambitious dates. As you put any large system of this complexity together, or do anything of this size, that roadblocks or problems you don't foresee could occur. But right now, those are the target dates that they are working towards. And in future committee meetings, they will be giving us, meaning the administrative, our staff that's responsible for this, will give the committee more detailed timelines and financial information regarding this work. In addition to that, here the computers that have to be used at each desk have been purchased, and that the work is underway, and the wiring, both electrical and communication, is in process to meet those dates that I indicated. The other area that we've moved ahead on, as you should be aware, is at the high school and the IMC. We're bringing the IMC up into the 21st century by replacing all of the computers in that area with 60 new units, and with the appropriate associated hardware, be printers or CD disk racks or stacks, whatever the terminology is. And that work is underway. The furniture for that has been on order. Training is planned for the staff in February, and our hope is here to bring that online and operational for the students in March of this year. So that's not very far away, and that's a big undertaking. And the wiring there, of course, both electrical and communication way is underway also at that time. We also discussed where we're going beyond those two pieces. And as you're aware, we want to move on with the IMCs in the middle schools and the elementaries. We want to move and determine what technology of what type we need in the classrooms, which will be a direct bearing of what comes out of the curriculum work, which Mrs. Reese indicated would be available, I believe, in March, which will lead to what equipment and it will be needed in those areas. So that the staff will bring forward to the committee the timelines and the costing related to these future projects. In addition, you hear a lot of Wide area network, local area network discussion. Wide area network is also an area that's had some discussion and some looking into, and it's tied in with some funding that we plan to get from the government, and so we have to look at wide area network as related to this funding that we'll be receiving, hopefully, and we should be receiving that. In that area, they will also be bringing us timelines and cost analysis of that also. Now, in each one of these things that are brought to us to the committee to review, not only do we have a timeline and a cost projection, we also have, you know, what benefits and why are we doing it, and what do we hope to gain from it. So when we bring it to the board as a total package, we should at that time be able to tell you why we recommend it and what we're going to gain for it, how long it's going to take to do it, and what it's going to cost. And that's something that this committee is quite strong about, is to putting that together in that area. That pretty much covers the material that was covered at the last meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hill. I had a chance to sit in on the technology committee meeting this week, and I was really impressed with not only the extent of work that the committee has done, but also at the command of the task I feel that Deborah Klein has. That is the first time, as I told Mrs. Deddy, that I had to see her, listen to her, articulate her position, our position in the district, and I was really impressed. I think Dr. Miller, you and Mr. Mosey, I know you were on that hiring situation, did a fine job. I left there feeling really comfortable with this young lady's ability to handle technology.
I'll let her know your comments.
Please, and whatever support you have all given her is, she's taken well to it, and we appreciate it.
Question, if I can, Madam President.
Sure.
Donna, regarding to the technology meeting the other night, it was noted on, and perhaps Mrs. Deddy, you can validate this or not, the bid for the equipment for the computers and the servers and so forth is going out tomorrow, the 16th.
Which project are we referring to?
We're talking at the high school, the IMC at the high school.
The specifications have been developed. We are, I think, today she sent some out to get price proposals, and it's likely that, as I explained at the committee level, it's likely that your state contract will be your most competitive alternative, but it's too early for us to report that.
Oh, so we haven't actually, she's not actually going for bid yet?
No.
Oh, okay, I was under the impression that the bid was going out tomorrow, because I'd asked at the meeting the other night that we see what this is going to cost, because I know that when we approved the expenditure, I think it was $297,000 back in November, I guess it was, or I think it was for the holidays. It was with the proviso that they, you know, we knew we could do better in those figures. And I've since gotten a letter from a consultant who looked at that and said, just off the top of his head, we could save $80,000. So I hope that because that $297,000 wasn't in that approval that night, that you know, we're looking for some considerable savings here, and I would like to see those numbers before we go to the bidding process. That's all I have. Thank you.
Just to support that, what you just said, Mr. Mosey, is that is part of the thing that we've asked for. And at the next committee meeting, they're going to give us a more detailed timeline of the high school, when these things, when they're going to be purchased and so forth, total cost of the project, and when the different expenditures will be out. So you'll have a knowledge of what the actual computers or the actual equipment cost in each one of those blocks along the timeline. And that'll be the case in any project we move ahead in technology.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to see it before we.
Well, that's right. You'll see that.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, just to make sure, then you are saying that list's going to be revised, because I saw Pentium computers on there, and then as a
Right.
separate item was
Right.
Windows 95. You're not going to
Right.
get a Pentium computer out there without Windows
Right.
95, I would think, as a part of the
That's not true.
package.
That's not true, actually.
Well, there was $2,700 for the computer, and then an additional
25.
Let's not get ourselves.
bulk. I'm just saying that was, the prices were way out of range for what you should have been purchasing on that PC.
The staff, the people, you know, we talked about, you know, Carol and Debbie and the other people that's working in this area, understand what we're trying to do. They understand what's available today on the market. They know how to make these two things to come together. Let's let them put this together and give us the report of what they intend to do and what those projected costs are going to be for those things, and let's look at it.
Well, I think, Frank, what Pat was trying to ask, will that list be refined? And not be taken as it was from the last time.
No,
we
that was
visited.
just a starting point.
Okay, on Penimation, Don, you said that we're still working out the terms of the contract on the Penimation, but if I understood you right, you also said we're moving forward with the work and with the equipment. Is that correct?
I'll let Carol speak to that. Carol, you want to fill us in on that?
The Board of School Directors bid the project in the summer and awarded the project to Penimation based upon those bid specifications. In discussion with the board's counsel, the bid response was in accordance with the specifications, and therefore it's unlikely that we will be signing any formal contract other than issuing a purchase order that states in accordance with the bid response from August 1997, and I also had struck out a memorandum of understanding on some business issues. There's likely that I will not be recommending the signing of a formal contract with Penimation at this time, and I think council, we agree on that.
That's correct. We agree.
So basically, the issues of the services that are more traditionally provided by the companies, we had issues of regarding migration, issues of the services to be provided. We're basically out of luck on that because it wasn't a part of the specs. So therefore, since a majority of the board approved that provider without that requirements, you're saying we can't pursue that, and we're closing the door on that, Carol?
Carol, would you like me to explain?
You had various issues that we said we were pursuing, and that's why I thought we were under negotiations.
Let me explain essentially what the position of the district is, and it really is the same with respect to any municipal purchase that needs to be bid. And that is this: when the district puts out its specifications, it is essentially an invitation to receive bids. We set the contractual terms by virtue of the specifications. That is how you establish your uniform bidding standard. That's why it is that everybody bids for the same thing. So when the specifications are put out and it is an invitation to bid, when the bidder responds with the price for those specifications and the materials that you have asked. In other words, they just bid the price for the contract that you've described.
Right.
Once that bid comes in, that creates the offer. Your acceptance here at the board is the acceptance, and of course the consideration is the fact that you've exchanged money for service or material. That creates the contract. There is no subsequent need then to draft a lengthy document that brings in new provisions that may not have been contemplated. And so what happens is when you attempt to do that, that ruins the uniform bidding standard that you had originally put out there in the public by virtue of your specifications. And that is what our opinion is. Now, if that creates some difficulty because of some ambiguity or lack of clarity with respect to the specifications, then we can deal with that in an appropriate manner. But the way to deal with that is not to have a 30-page contract with all new terms and provisions that differ from the uniform bidding standard that was initially agreed to.
Right. I understand. We've been hearing, though, from the, excuse me.
What's that? I'm sorry?
What we've done is we do have a 2-page memo of understanding of all the issues that may have been either ambiguous or left out, attached to the purchase order.
Fine.
Okay, I understand that, and I guess that speaks to just how serious you take your specifications, because that is the negotiating process that and negotiations, I thought, were essentially over once you set out the specs and you made you all awarded the bid, but I've been hearing that we were under discussions for a contract, and...
Well, when I got the contract, I rendered that opinion immediately.
Okay, all right, and we were at that status, and I think we just heard that tonight. I know, Carol, did we have any gains there in those ambiguous areas, or as far as the services we would be receiving from Penimation in the setups?
I think business issues that may have been either omitted or were ambiguous prior to the memo of understanding have sufficient favor in favor of the school.
Favorable to us.
Yes.
Okay.
All righty.
Thank you.
Carol and Frank, you handling it? I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable. All righty. Mr. Hill, you still there?
That was the end of my report.
Second. Any other questions of technology? Again, committee, good hard work this week. Thank each and every one of you.
You're welcome.
High school expansion, Mr. Mosey.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, before I give my report, since we're going to be getting into the NAP project, and Mr. Schilling will be giving updates and reports on that part of the project, I'd like to make a recommendation. I hate to extend the committee reports, but since we have the high school expansion as
Yep,
a separate
the NAP.
item, that we also put
The
the
NAP
NAP.
expansion.
So when I'm finished making my report, I know Mr. Schilling has a progress report that he wants to read tonight as well.
Okay, thank
So I
you.
think we'll just make that part of our regular meetings until we're finished with the project.
Okay, Mr. Schilling, do you feel we should have this on every meeting? You'll be able to provide us with a report?
Well, I prob-
NAP is at that pace where
I
we can have a
believe so,
report every
yeah.
month? Okay. Mrs. Hatfield, on our agendas, if you would add, I guess line up NAP right underneath the high school expansion for reporting purposes, and then adjust A through whatever for next meeting. Okay, thank you.
I do have a report, thank you. I do have a report. The North Penn Water Authority has completed the relocation of our water service, which previously ran through the new addition footprint. Students began using the temporary parking lots on January the 5th, 1998. Coupled with this usage, are new traffic patterns and the use of the gym lobby as our main entrance. Dr. Cotter is very pleased with the transition and has complimented students, staff, and parents for their effort to make the new system function. Site work progresses at a most favorable pace. The enlarged parking area has been excavated. The new playing field at the 4-H property has been graded to finish grade and will be raked and seeded in the spring. Stormwater piping has been placed in the cafeteria area and around the 3-story building addition. The general contractor has completed footings and foundation walls for the cafeteria addition. Work has begun in the front of the building where footings and foundation walls have been poured for the chiller tower. The projected weather for the next few work days will affect progress until the beginning of next week. End of report.
Been a little busy, Art. Just a little bit, huh?
Can't get a hold of it.
When you have good contractors, things move quickly, yeah, and that's what's happening.
Well, the weather helped too.
Art, you've built more buildings than Cutler, so we're glad you're there too. Any questions of the high school expansion? At all? Okay, Mr. Mezzi, thank you. Mr. Schilling?
Yeah, as an addendum to tonight's action agenda, the superintendent will recommend approval of the resolution that establishes the Act 34 hearing for Napa Elementary School project. The purpose of this resolution is defined in the attached green sheet. Please be reminded that the date for the actual hearing has been set for Wednesday, February 25th, 1998 at 7:30 p.m. End of report.
Thank you, Mr. Schilling. Any questions, Mr. Schilling? Okay, Art, now that we have diverted the water, does that mean we are not going to offer fly fishing?
That's true, until we build the dam in the spring.
So we should look for fly fishing to come back. North Ponto Technical Career Center, Mr. Allen.
Since our last meeting, the JOC has not met, so I have no report, except to say they will be meeting next week.
There you go.
End of report.
You don't want to make anything up?
Nah, fake it.
I can add something if I can. We
Sure.
have been getting, or at least on a monthly and sometimes a bi-monthly basis from Dr. Irwin, construction status report. And from the last one we got, it looks like, the last one we received, pardon me, it looks like we're going to be somewhere around the middle of February and to complete that project. They really, I can't believe how quickly they've gotten that finished. It's
We've had good
beautiful.
weather.
Yes.
We've had real good weather.
Very nice facility.
Any questions of the committee? Mr. Allen or Mr. Mosey? Okay, thank you. Work Science Partnership, I believe that was under you, Mrs. Krieger, on K-12 curriculum.
No report.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, Donald, we can discuss.
Well, I pretty much said meet, discuss. Meet, discuss is really on hold. There's no interest with the, or no need, I guess you'd say, interest. There's no interest or no need for a meeting with the administrators until they complete this merit review and have this merit thing, which they're working diligently on. And once they have that and we've reviewed it, we'll bring it to the meet and discuss.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, Mrs. Hatfield, if you would, Merck Science Partnership, did you eliminate that as its own category? That has been placed under K through 12 curriculum with Mrs. Krieger and Dr. Hassler, and if there is something to report in that area, they will just do so under their entire assignment.
Very good.
Okay? Municipal Relations, Mr. Shapinsky.
No report for January.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Shapinsky? Okay, folks. My pages are messed up here, Donna.
Recommend approval of,
Okay.
I love this item.
Oh, yeah?
Don't want to miss this one.
Come on.
Okay, what we've all been waiting for a very, very long time is under committee reports here. We do have to recommend approval to nominate Sharice Krieger for consideration by the
Can I-
Montgomery County IU uniform.
I want to move that.
Second, so moved,
All in favor?
Aye.
You think you were all
She's on.
sitting here at a Muncie State Women's Prison or something? Oh, my word. Is there a motion?
It's yours.
I make a motion.
Motion by Schilling.
Second.
Second by Mosey and O'Donnell and Hill and no problem, Mrs. Hatfield, you got all those names down. Are there any questions about this assignment? Mrs. Krieger?
No.
Shut up, Mrs. Krieger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Okay.
You're a goner.
You know, I feel a little
Nice to
like
be
my
one.
father-in-law, God bless his soul. He was captured in a POW during
Yep.
World War II.
There's a correlation.
You're right.
And there was an electrical fire. And his commanding officer said, any volunteers step forward, the whole line stepped backwards, and he was nominated. I feel a little like
How
him
it
tonight.
feels.
My only concern between now and June is that I do have a long-term obligation on Wednesday evenings, not till June, till the beginning of May. So I'm not quite sure if the meeting night for the IU has changed. It used to be last year on Wednesday evening, Dr. Bose, if you could just call me and just let me know when they meet, please, and if I can't make it to me on May meeting.
Vince will go for
You
it.
can go down there and make them
Maybe somebody
change
else would
it.
volunteer to go
you know?
before me in the end.
No volunteers.
I think the term begins after June.
This is not a
Okay.
volunteer organization.
Not till after June?
I believe we
Legislative, right?
Because the election actually takes place in
Okay,
April.
folks,
I would just ask that you all vote now that you've nominated me. When the ballots come, please vote.
that's true. When your ballots come, please vote for Mrs. Krieger, because if you don't, she's coming back. Okay?
When will they be coming?
Audience of citizens. Is there anybody? Mr. Gordon?
Good evening, H. Bruce Gordon, Montgomery Township. Very glad once again to read the internet policy that's been put forward. I take it that it doesn't actually have to be read publicly.
Solicitor? Is that necessary?
I didn't,
Okay.
I mean, it's available
It has
for,
been distributed and is available, and as long as that's the case, I think that meets the requirements of technical reading.
that's great. The just a couple of questions. There's reference in here regarding the account holder that parents of minors having accounts should be aware of the existence of such materials with regards to various materials available on the internet. And it goes on to say, and monitor home usage. We're putting this in for future access?
Yeah.
We're planning on
actually,
opening our
Yeah.
district access up for home
We
input?
were looking into the future with the potential of that. We thought it should be directed into the policy now.
Good, that's okay. One other question I had on it, with regards to the agreement here between North Penn School District and internet account holders, there's a proposed signature area for a student if the student is of age as an adult, versus if the account holder is a student, I should say, I'm sorry, the assumption is a non-student there on the top one. On the second one, it says if the account holder is a student, then parent and teacher signatures are required. Why are we having teachers sign this? What accountability are we trying to gain by having teachers sign this agreement?
Actually, I think the section that references the teacher, say, I, the teacher, the aforementioned student, understand and agree to abide by the terms and conditions of the document, the acceptable use policy of the North Penn School District, and administrative regulations related thereto, as may from time to time be amended. It is only really an agreement to the AUP and the district regulations, merely to reflect, with respect to that particular student, the understanding of those matters.
So if thinking negatively, which of course we don't want to do. If a student were to get in trouble and the fact that their parents signed off, the teacher who also signed is not in any way going to be held accountable.
Not unless the teacher did something improper. There's
Right,
no
well-
responsibility for the teacher with respect to improper use of a student.
This is for this teacher as a user, if it's improperly used.
Well, the wording up at the top, at the middle of the line says, if the account holder is a student, then parent and teacher signatures are required. And I was just wondering why the teacher had to sign for the student with the parents. It didn't seem to make any sense there.
Merely note that what the teacher agrees to is to abide by the terms and conditions of the document, the acceptable use policy, and district regulation.
I would think the teacher would be signing that document anyway when they themselves get an account.
May well be the case. It may be duplication. There's nothing wrong with that.
So there will be no, per se, accountability. They won't be held accountable if students not under their direct supervision get in trouble.
No, there's no responsibility on the part of the teacher for something that the student does without the teacher's knowledge. The teacher's responsible for his or her own conduct, not the conduct of someone that may do something improper.
Right. Okay. I assume that. I just was still wondering why they had to sign something special. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I follow up on that? Thinking of the middle school and the high school where a student may have 6 or 7 teachers and a librarian and who knows who else, what teacher do we have sign this is accountable for that student?
The one that's going to monitor the internet.
The one who will be in charge of that student's, or the monitoring of that student's use of our network.
But if there are computers in various rooms that the same student can use for different subjects and different times,
Yeah, but
does he need
the
it?
internet's only going to be
The internet
one
is going to be at
place.
selected rooms,
Site.
selected sites, where
Right.
that's going to be. That was
It's
what
not
it
gonna be in the
originally was
classroom.
intended.
Okay.
It wasn't for every teacher that student has, no.
Okay, all right, thanks.
To follow
Having
Bill,
internet on every computer in that building.
I still have to say that you've got various teachers, and English teachers could be taking them down for access. You've got others. To me, I would, maybe I'm out of line with where Mr. Totten's headed, but as I look at this acceptable use policy, they're agreeing to what they agree by virtue of their employment in the district, to adhere to the policies and the administrative regulations of this district. And it would be one thing if we were asking, if we wanted to reaffirm that for them as an employee, but you're talking for every single student. You're talking about a teacher having to sign 125 of these things, which has no more weight than what we already have by status of our board policy and regulations.
Vicki, it may not have
Authority.
any weight, but the thing we were looking at it and all the publications that Vince has gotten, I have a stack this high of them. I've been following this for months. And we're just trying to cover as many bases as we can, because in states and some schools there is litigation pending because schools did not do their homework and did not cover certain aspects of internet use. And maybe it's overkill, but our point is, and like I said at the last meeting, a law is really tested in court. When they write laws, sometimes they're purposely and loosely written until they are tried in court. And we're just trying to cover the bases in the event that we're trying to increase the accountability factor, because we are talking about limiting the access to certain sites and certain computers, and trying to take as much responsibility off the shoulders of the teacher.
Right, but Pat, that comes from what the strength of your policy is.
Right.
Having a teacher sign to this to simply say that they're going to abide by policy, they are already under that requirement of employment.
Well, but I think with
And
internet,
it's-
we talked about this, with internet, we felt we had to be more specific.
But you could have 5 teachers for one student having to sign, for this individual blanket statement, having to sign 125 papers. 5 for that one student. I mean, or to bring it down to the
125
individual
papers for one
students.
student.
Well, a teacher generally has a caseload of 125 students in the
Okay.
course of a day. Their schedule. So, you're talking that caseload, to take it down to a statement that's by individual name.
This should have been discussed with the other.
And that's the only thing. I mean, we have some strong issues here with the district that deal with representational consent. And there's been a lot of,
So what do you- what is your
controversy
suggestion? What's your
associated with
suggestion?
the bureaucracy, the
What's your
paperwork.
suggestion?
Then what is your
I would say that
suggestion?
well, first of all, I would say it's redundant, but if you want to get an agreement of accessible use policy, of a teacher's acknowledgement to abide by the policy and the regs, then just do it for the teacher. That stands for the employee, for their students in general, rather than each and every student.
I'll tell you what, Vicki, I'm
Having,
gonna address it this way. This is the first reading. We will have a second reading. We will have a committee meeting between
Right.
that date
Right.
and the next date.
Right.
So we can discuss this further in committee and
Exactly.
resolve this.
Okay.
The issue for you is what? You
Just the
think it's
bureaucratic
redundant?
nightmare that it creates, and plus, we're gonna store all this, or we're gonna feed it into a flatbed feeder and put it on the computer where we store all these permission slips for every single student,
All right.
for every teacher that might be taking them to a computer.
All right, your concern is due noted. We'll bring it up at the next meeting
Right.
for further discussion.
And, you know, and basically what value it serves.
Mrs. Abrams, you were lining up. I saw you.
Linda Abram, Upper Gwinnett. I know this process is new, but bear with me as I try and get a handle on these committee meetings. First of all, when the list of board committees was handed out last week, and there were, I guess, 1 through 9 handed, this sheet that we got last week. It had all of the committees and who were assigned to them. There was one, I think, change, support services, it was Allen, O'Donnell, and Schilling, but were any other changes made? In other words, what we received last week, is this the final?
There was a committee sheet put out at the last meeting that under support services for the compensation review, there was a typographical that I had double-checked with Marilyn Canavan. She read my handwriting of Allen. She read it as Sharp.
Right, okay, so that was.
So it is not Sharp, it is Bill Allen.
I had that.
Bill Allen and I had that talk, I believe the next day, when that was noted, and Mrs. Canavan made a corrected copy.
Okay, but no other changes have been made, so in other
Now,
words.
this evening, I had mentioned earlier that under support services, there's secretaries, there's aides, math aides, support aides, transportation. There are all categories of employees. The secretary portion is a weighty one, and I wanted to remove that from that category and handle that separately under personnel with Dr. Miller. Mr. Allen, of course, can be a part of that if he so wishes to touch with it as a support services category. But the weight of handling that specific review will be handled by personnel.
Okay.
That's the 3 of us.
Okay, so as we go through this process of getting a handle on these meetings and when they occur, I was keeping up with everything that was mentioned tonight, but I missed one. On the 5th of February, I think, Mrs. Krieger, you mentioned, could you tell me who's meeting on the 5th of February?
Curriculum, K through 12,
Okay. Okay, and what time is that?
7:30.
Okay.
Just for clarification, there's 3 meetings being held on
The same night.
the same night. 6
Starting
o'clock
at
is
6.
technology, 7 o'clock is the policy, and the curriculum will follow that.
Okay, okay. How are we advertising, publicizing these dates and these topics and what have we?
By legal notice. Now, the goal is to provide that each committee will select a day of the month for its meetings and a time of day.
Okay.
4 have done that now perhaps 5.
Okay.
I have done that after Mrs. Krieger's announcement. And so while we'll post with the legal requirement notices of the Open Public Meetings Act, the Sunshine Law, all such committee meetings until we have determined which day of the month, every month they're going to meet. And then we'll give one notice
Okay.
with all those times for the period of time from the notice to the December reorganization meeting.
Okay,
And if there are exceptions to that, such as cancellations,
okay.
we will provide notice of those cancellations through voicemail, phone-in, hear recording, through posting at the door, and through a notice on the TV channel.
Okay. And again, just for my own clarification, the purpose of these meetings is to allow the board and if you will, the administration, as well as the community, to have dialogue about these particular topics in their entirety for that particular period of time. Is it then assumed that the result of those committee meetings will be brought forth at these meetings, either work session or action?
Correct. First work session.
Okay, so that, because, you know, it's,
We like to use this meeting for action.
okay,
Sometimes probably far more discussion goes
Yeah.
on in an action meeting than really should have happened, because that work, that homework should have been done in the work session.
Okay.
And now we have committee meetings. The purpose of the committee meetings was to not only open up the process, but to hopefully cut down on the length of these meetings, because these 4, 5, 6-hour meetings are not only tiresome for board members and administrators that were here since 7, 8 in the morning, but yourselves as parents.
Right,
They're
okay.
becoming just onerous.
okay. So, but if we are not fortunate to be able to attend as many meetings as we would like to, we can hope that at the work session, there would be at least a summary of
Yes.
what occurred at those committee level meetings.
It would
And
be
you
similar to
see
what
the
Mr.
effort, too, to piggyback on the same evenings. And your concerns were expressed, I think, at the last meeting, and you'll notice from what we've already been able to post for permanent times for committees to meet, some of these chairmen heard you and took their committee, their memberships, and jumped right on it and set dates.
Right.
So some of these committees have already done their work.
Yes.
And have set
okay.
those solid dates.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. When handouts are given at these committee meetings, I know there may be numerous copies made. I don't know whether it would be foreseeable or too cumbersome, but I wonder if they could be made available at the work session on the caddy back there on the bottom rungs. I mean, if someone...
That's not unreasonable at all. It is a public document. It was already put out to the public, and...
I mean, if there are extra I'm not saying to make more, but if there's extra copies that people...
Madam President,
Like we would make for a work session.
Right.
Madam President, rather than doing that, because with 9 committees, you could have quite a stack out there. Maybe just make them available in the community relations office. They could be picked up by
Okay,
them.
but when we do that anyway, but on work session evenings and on, action evenings, when there are documents that pertain to one matter or another, we sometimes stack them back on the caddy.
Yeah.
So it's an
I would
ongoing
appreciate
practice. You're
that.
just saying if something specifically was handed out at a committee meeting, could it be on the caddy at the work session or the action meeting
Right,
also?
right. I don't...
Mrs. Hatfield, if you'd note that, that's not unreasonable.
Well, I think Linda also said if there are extra ones.
Yeah, I mean, if there's...
We produced far more for the first 2 than we needed. So there are extra.
I had 2 at my door, right?
But I'd hate to have a situation where if there aren't extra ones, we go back into print again and we produce more than people would ever consume.
Yeah, and
It's a reasonable request to give away the extra ones.
Right, that's what I'm saying, if there's extra ones. And then if someone is so interested, they can come into community relations and ask for a copy. Right, right, that's fine. Just an update, if I could ask Mr. Wood to give me just an update on where we are with the tent modular at Gwynnor. Have we talked with Upper Gwynedd?
We've had informal discussions with Upper Gwynedd, and it appears as though it's gonna be doable. And we're now, I've had discussions with Dr. Hassler, and he will be meeting with some of with elementary principals and with Dr. Robinson to determine the number that we're gonna need, whether it's 1 or 2.
Okay, and obviously Dr. Walsh will be in on that
Absolutely.
conversation. Okay. And just a note, I see that Gail Tatum is resigning, and I do want to publicly thank her for her time here. I think Gail has been a tremendous asset to our district. I have been with her publicly in situations where we have been talking about North Penn, telling the folks what good things we do here, and quite frankly, she's eloquent, very knowledgeable, and I think she'll be sorely missed. I want to thank her for that time that she's given to us.
Thank you, Mrs. Abrams. Anybody else, please? Mrs. Orr?
My name is Joanne Orr. I reside in Lansdale. I was wondering if Mr. Bartle had found out whether the board could communicate to a municipality requesting, if they don't already have in place, a non-burning of leaves and yard waste. I know the majority of municipalities in the district don't, or don't burn.
Yeah, I can answer that.
Certainly.
The board actually can and board members may communicate whatever they want to personally. I would caution against taking a stand over an issue like that, because that's well beyond the purview of a school board. If the individual members of the board wish to express an opinion, they may certainly do so. They may communicate in writing, and that would be true of any resident. But as a school board, that really has nothing to do with what we're about here.
Can I ask you as individuals to communicate to Tom Menson, seeing how our high school, and I don't know, is there an elementary school in that township? I know the majority of townships in the district do not burn yard clippings and leaves.
Mrs. Orr, I have no agreement or disagreement with you on the substantive issue. Just as a matter of what the school board does, we do not get involved in issues like that with respect to townships.
But you said individually they could.
That's not what the school district is about. But as individuals, certainly, you can ask them on their own time or privately.
I'm asking them publicly, would you support cleaner air for municipalities in the school district, is what I'm asking.
I understand that.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, if you're going to handle it on an individual basis, you may want to talk to them. That is not part of their duty as a school director.
Okay.
This is not business of this body. Okay?
And then I have one question on this internet. I'm not a computer person, but why can't things that are undesirable on the internet be blocked out like they do on television?
I can't answer that, Mr.
Yeah, I can attempt to answer that. We have directed the administration to review screening software and filtering software, and they haven't yet to come back with any recommendations for that. I think Dr. Hassler's on top of that right now. And we intend to do the best job we can. We have to discuss this further when the administration comes forward with a recommendation, because we're faced with two different choices. My personal preference, and this is only speaking for myself, is I'd rather see guidance than censorship. But we're out here to protect our kids, so we're going to do the best job we can. And when Dr. Hassler comes forward with his recommendation, we'll examine it. And I think it'll be added to a regulation, not actually the policy itself.
It's just a little scary there. I don't allow the internet in our household. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Orr. Anybody else, please? Anybody? Okay, folks, thank you. Dr. Bose.
See, we took care of 3 years. Okay.
We're at number.
Recommend approval to accept and operate funding by the Montgomery County School to Career Council for grants totaling $16,061. No matching funds are required.
So moved.
Question by Schilling, second by Krieger. Questions?
Just one.
Yes.
I'd just like to point out for the record, since this is a green sheet to us, maybe Dr. Miller can confirm this. On the list, there's 2 individuals noted as the responsible parties, Charles Hurst and Lisa Morelli. I think their place at their school sites are switched. Lisa Morelli is at Montgomery Elementary.
Oh, you're talking, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about something related to the issue that was on the floor. I was confused. I'm sorry.
I am talking about something that's on the floor. Maybe it's about Dr. Hassler. Dr. Hassler?
Yeah, the green sheet.
Okay.
The green sheet, it says Charles Hurst, Montgomery, Lisa
We have
Morelli,
them
Pembroke Middle School.
transposed.
You're correct.
Yes.
You are correct.
Could you just correct that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Recommends board's approval of the accreditation for growth process for North Penn High School. That's sponsored by the Middle States Accrediting Association. The board will recall the working session, the report from Dr. Hassler and Dr. Cotter. That's the formal approval that we seek from you.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Krieger, second by Mosey. Questions? Right? Left?
Dr. Hassler, we didn't get this before you and Dr. Cotter made your presentation. It was just given to us in our packet last night.
Right.
So forgive me for asking these couple of questions now, but I was concerned about the first page where it says represents an end result and not a means to an end.
What they simply mean by that is that they want to measure results, not just how you get somewhere, but
what does it result in, student
I know, but
achievement.
the way it's written, it lends itself to an awful lot of interpretation, that's all.
There's further definition.
I know. And also, an external facilitator from the outside school is strongly recommended for development of the plans at the highest level and partial accountability is reached. We're talking about bringing someone in from the outside to facilitate this?
It's recommended, but we feel that we would prefer to facilitate the process ourselves.
Okay. And there was a question in here about technology. And it mentioned the fact that
These were examples.
no, there was something, if you want to add if technology is to be an end result, it must be made into a graduation requirement. And that kind of goes along with what I asked at the work session. We plan on bringing in some more courses to meet this.
Permissible. That's not a mandate.
Right.
Oh, okay.
That's an example of what they would like.
Well, no,
Right.
they gave examples in the back. This was right in paragraph A. It wasn't an example, it was a statement.
But it's still permissible.
Okay.
It's not a mandate.
That's all I have, Madam President. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Recommend approval for the contract with the Lincoln Center for Alternative Education for Students as needed for the 1997-98 school year at the per diem rate of $97.50, presented on item 6-98.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mosley, second by Schilling. Questions left? Right?
Can I ask, is this per student? $97.50 per day per student?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
And what is the Lincoln Center rate again? Anyone?
It is per student.
It says for.
Does this include transportation? I couldn't find any
Yes.
note of that.
It's within the 10-mile radius.
Is it our transportation? So it's over and above.
It's within the 10 miles.
And serious concerns against that rate, as I recall from the Lincoln Center. This was
Comes out to
From the
$19,000
youth
some
center.
odd dollars for a 180-day year.
Right, as compared with that. Okay, I just want confirmation that we have no choices on this?
Yes. Yes,
We do
we have
not.
no.
Dr. Hassler, you will take the assignment of checking into any reimbursement that would come from the home municipality or the home school district of these students?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
The next item is an addendum. You've heard it discussed by board members as a part of the report, and it is the recommendation to approve a resolution for the Knapp Elementary School Project Act 34 hearing process, which is required. And it's presented on item 7-98 for your consideration.
No.
Motion by Scherzer, second.
Second.
Second by Schilling. It's a resolution, so we're going to call for a board roll call. Mrs. Hatfield, please.
Allen?
Yes?
Hill?
Yes.
Krieger? Yes. Mosey?
Yes.
O'Donnell?
Yes.
Scher?
Yes.
Sherpinski?
Yes.
Schilling?
Yes.
Magel?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Recommend acceptance of the following gifts to the school district, and as you will note, most of them are technology-related gifts.
So moved.
Motion by Schilling.
Second.
Second by Sherpinski. Questions left? Right? All in favor? Sorry.
I just want to ask, we do send letters of thank you to these people?
Always.
Oh, yes.
Always.
Just as a letter of
I asked
clarification.
that months ago.
Just as a matter of clarification for our large TV audience and the people here, is that it was one of the items that was discussed that I didn't bring up in my report on technology is that we are keeping track, and we're most appreciative of all the donations coming into the school system, but we're also making sure that as this technology, whether it be computers or associated equipment, does meet with our overall plans as we're moving forward across the district.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hill. Questions, right? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Recommend award of the following low bids as presented on DA-5, and the low bid is noted. This is for science equipment.
All opposed?
Second?
Motion by Allen, second by Mosey. Questions left? Mrs.
Yeah.
Krieger.
Go ahead.
Do you have questions?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll wait.
Dr. Bose, is this K, I'm sorry, is this 9th through 12th grade science equipment or K through 8?
K-12.
Got them all?
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to know if we couldn't have purchased some of this, as we have in the past, with some of the demise money.
There is some MISE money in this.
Well, there will be funding part of this?
Part of it is underwritten by the project.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
We've now moved on to personnel. The first recommendation asks you to approve the 2 professional staff and 5 support staff appointments presented on BA-6A.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Krieger, second by Mosey. Questions right? Left?
Yes. I see that Ms. Giordano is currently a student teacher?
No, Ms. Giordani was a student teacher last year.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Retirements. There's a correction, and Dr. Miller is going to tell us that I think somebody's changed his mind about retirement.
No, a resignation, Dr. Bose, on the next page, and I can certainly get it out of the way for you now since you mentioned it.
Thank you.
On the very next page, under resignation support staff, number 2, at about 2:45 this afternoon, we had a call from the Transportation Department saying that one of the people had changed her mind, and they wholeheartedly wanted her to change her mind, and we're glad she was staying. So if we could please remove Susan McCarty from the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. And then I'll return to retirements. There are 3 professional staff and 3 support staff retiring as presented on BA-6.
Motion by Shapinsky, second by O'Donnell. Questions right? Left?
Yes, again, I see ratifications, resignations that were affected in November and December. Any reason why they weren't brought forward at earlier board meetings?
I don't know that, and they're resignations, not nominations, Mr. Mosey, so we usually have brought them forward when they come to us. I don't know why.
I was just wondering why we had a 2-month delay and someone's retired, why we weren't notified for 2 months.
We put them on as
Or
we
resign.
receive. We put them on as we receive them, so
Okay.
we can certainly check into that for you.
Yeah, it's been happening at the last few, we didn't have this problem for a long time, and I
Oh,
noticed
excuse me, I do know the reason for this. Please forgive me. We inadvertently the board did not approve them at the last meeting. They were on the last agenda, and it was an oversight.
Okay.
And it was not approved, so we
Thank
put them
you.
on again.
So you're saying we made the mistake?
No, I'm saying that it was a collective mistake. It was just easily overlooked.
Thank you.
I was going to say, it's probably us.
It's your fault.
Did we move so quickly?
Wasn't
We
Hill
just
running
went-
that meeting?
We went right by it.
Yeah, Hill was on that meeting. That's
It's nice
blame
to
it on
rush
him.
us through
Blame it on
everything.
him.
No, it's nice to know we can all make a mistake. We're all human.
All right.
I think so.
There's Judy bringing out Pumsy to make us feel better. Put it
Yeah,
back.
well, I feel better already.
Oh,
All right,
boy.
let's move on.
I feel much better about
Let's
myself.
move on.
Well, I'll tell you.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
I could stay home and
Opposed,
felt this
nay.
good.
Thank you.
Recommend approval of the resignation, the number, 1 professional staff and now 6 support staff as presented on BA-6B.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Krieger, second by Schilling. Questions left? Right? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
The next personnel item is position changes. There are 2 support staff changing positions as presented on BA-6B for your approval.
Come on, folks.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Shapinsky, second by O'Donnell. Questions right? Left? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Recommend the 1 professional staff retirement, change of date as presented on BA-6B.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hill, second by O'Donnell. Questions left?
I just want to wish them all good luck with their new babies.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
Right? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. You know, Mr. Allen, you have a dry wit.
He really does, you know?
He's like an undertow, isn't he?
His microphone's always off.
Gosh,
Recommend board approve the 8 professional staff leaves of absence as presented on VA-6C.
So moved.
Motion by Mosey, second by O'Donnell. Questions to the right? Left? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Recommend approval of Douglas Johnson as a student technology intern at North Penn High School at a salary of $5.15 per hour.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Schilling, second by Mosey. Questions? To the right.
What did we, how did we just plan to use? Just not a lot of detail, just brief overview of what this young man will be doing.
This young man is, go ahead, a troubleshooter.
Okay.
He's supervised by one of the teachers who will supervise other interns as they become trained. And because the number of computers at the high school, he'll be the first on the scene to try to correct the problem before somebody with more technical training.
Fine, thank you.
I understand this young man is brilliant in this area.
Probably
He's a real,
own Microsoft someday.
oh, there you go.
Well,
That'll intimidate the rest of us.
Good, have him at the board meetings.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Recommend approval of additions to the professional and support staff substitute list for the current school year as presented on VA-7.
So moved.
Motion by Mosey, second by O'Donnell. Questions, right? Left? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Recommend approval of additions and changes to the extra duty assignments for the current school year as presented on item 4-98.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Krieger, second by Schilling. Questions to the left? Right? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Recommend the board approve the 4 student travel activities as presented on VA-8.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mosey, second by O'Donnell. Questions left?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Donald.
Why is there 3 items, the top 3? Why it just says recommend approval for 3 students? I don't know, is there some particular reason why it's?
We have to recommend all travel, I think that's.
Well, that's right, but why wouldn't it just say 3 students?
They're different dates, Don.
Oh, they're different, oh, okay. I just want to see if anybody else picked that up. Very good.
Oh, you're really good.
It's a good remember.
I'm talking about dancing on your feet.
He is quick.
Credits there,
Very good.
He just wanted to make sure the rest of us weren't in the weeds. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Next item is information. I'll note that for your use, and then move on to other business.
And we're going to embarrass him when we know who it is.
It's all right.
No, we're not.
It was done.
It was me.
Technology was technology.
It was technology.
Hey, who's the blank, fill in the blank here? Who's the fill in the blank?
We don't have attention, do we, Mr.
I feel left out sometimes.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Recommend approval to appoint Robert Graciano to the North Penn School District Authority for a 5-year term ending December 31, 2002.
So moved.
Oh, don't all jump.
Second.
Oh, Bob, aren't you embarrassed?
With pride.
Motion by Schilling, second by
Mosey.
Mosey.
Let me say, he called me on the phone, and I explained the extensive job that is, and he agreed to undertake that difficult task.
You mean you told him a nice restaurant you had?
Well, you know, who wouldn't take a job for $100,000 a year?
That's it.
No, for the record, Mrs. Hatfield, that was a joke. There is no. Look at Mr. Graziano, he's having a hard time. I don't believe there is any honorarium or monies attached to serving, is there?
No, I didn't get any.
Well, it's gonna change now.
Everybody else did.
Everybody else did.
Everybody else did.
Mr. Graziano is in the audience, if he'd stand up so we could applaud him. Thank you, sir. Thank you for serving, and thank you for being in the audience and being here for a number of years.
Having the guts to show up.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Recommend approval for a waiver of transfer taxes on one parcel number 35005662-009 to be acquired by Hatfield Township as open space.
So moved.
So moved.
want to get that one.
Second.
So moved.
John, is this your house?
Hey, wait a minute.
Hold it, I've never said.
Backyard.
Okay. Motion by Schilling, second by O'Donnell.
No, it's
Questions
fine.
left? Right.
Right, has this officially transferred to tax exempt status?
It will, upon your approval, be formalized.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. Okay. Your treasurer's report. Treasurer's report, Mrs. Daddy.
Not sure what your protocols are. I handed out the copy of summary of the treasurer's report for the month of December 1997.
You have to move your mic over, I don't think anybody can hear you.
Mrs. Deddy, I want to thank you for that. I've been asking for that type of breakdown for months.
I'm not sure what your protocols are, whether I need to read this into the minutes since everyone has a copy of it.
Yes.
More or less hit the highlights.
Okay. The highlights, if I can draw your attention to the cash receipts for December, $4,377,306. And the cash receipts to date, an evaluation of our revenues indicates that receipts are on target in accordance with our budget expectation for receipts. Cash disbursements, primarily your bills lists and the two payrolls for the month of December. And our investments, it should be noted that short-term investments of $4.5 million and long-term investments of $53 million. You can unequivocally say that our investment income at this point in time exceeds our budget expectation. Our budget expectation for the 12-month period, July 1997 through June 30th, was $1.7 million. We have already achieved the $1.7 million in anticipated income.
That's good.
Good news.
Good.
Thank you.
Any questions, Mrs. Daddy, left? Right? Acceptance of the reporters or motion?
Yes.
Motion by Shapinsky, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mosey. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you, Mrs. Daddy. You continue with the budget transfers?
Yes, I'm recommending budget transfers for the month of December. These budget transfers, as you've been advised previously, are being made monthly. The small amounts that you see are generally initiated by building administrators in order to keep their accounts out of the red or in order for them to continue making purchases. We have a policy in place now that if there's not money in the account, the purchase order, in fact, is returned to the originator. So principals have been very actively submitting their request for budget transfers in order to continue their purchasing. Recommend the approval of the budget transfers in the amount of $647.50.
So moved.
Motion by Schilling, second by Sharp. Questions left?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Not on this, but initially on the first handout, you had that $1.8 million that you were going to transfer. Have you had time to work on that transfer of the $1.8 million?
No, I have not. I will be submitting to the Finance Committee. I believe we have a meeting January 27th with the
Okay.
transfer recommendations. And I would like that particular transfer recommendation to be pulled for tonight's meeting.
And as you see, it has.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Questions, right? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. Continue, Mrs. Daddy.
Recommend approval of the bills list as shown. Want to make a comment on the bills list? There has been some feedback given to me that the format of the bills list is least helpful in determining how the district is spending money. Been asked to look at reformatting the bills list in the way it's presented to you to give you more information about the type of expenditure. I want to say that we've talked about it in-house, and it takes some programming and some staff time. I would hope that I come back to you next month with a tentative date for this to be implemented. The new pentamation software, there's no doubt that this is a piece of cake to a report writer and do the report. With the old series, it does take some expertise and some time to make the changes.
Just work it through the committee,
Okay.
you know, as opposed to, okay.
Yeah, Ms. Mango, just so you know, I had probably 8 or 9 items I had asked Mrs. Deddy to work on, or to look at. One of them was, I thought, who were we putting up 1,300 hours for the terraces? And apparently it was
The Terraces is a private school. We were under the impression that it might have been the apartments.
For all the administrators were moving in for overnight stay, yeah.
So, I think the bills as it's currently presented is a little used.
I think at the last committee meeting we had too, back in November, we had asked Mrs. Betty about the format of this back then, so I appreciate you addressing it, keeping it. I know you only have a couple things to do every day, so we really, yeah, it's a piece of cake, thank you.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you, Mrs. Steady. Food Services Report, Mr. Wood.
For the month of December, we had total income of $330,907.06. Year-to-date, total income, $1,514,538.88. Gross profit on sales, month of December, $177,608.97. Year-to-date, gross profit on sales, $858,181.54. Net profit for the month of December was $23,629.30. Year-to-date, $69,292.14. It's interesting to note, as we compare December and year-to-date last year, we've served 5,090 more breakfasts, and we've served 85,355 more lunches for a 4-month period than we did last year.
That's because many of us are major stockholders.
Yeah, really.
Are board members allowed
Would I go to lunch over there?
There's an adult fee.
If it's increased this much, it must be awful good eating.
It is good.
Yeah, why are we eating in town when we could be eating
Yeah.
here?
No kidding.
Over there.
All right, any other questions for the food service report? Okay.
Good job.
Arthur, a fine report, and
Yes,
if you
sir.
take that, our compliments back to
Bonnie.
Mrs. Irwin and her staff, we'd appreciate
What a
it.
great job she does.
She sure does. Okay, federal programs, Dr. Bose.
No report.
Ooh, that's nice. Any questions of Dr. Bose?
No.
Okay, solicitors report.
Thank you, Madam President. I have no report this time.
Great report.
Great report. Hey, how about a weather report?
Get out of here. I
Wait,
second it.
question?
I make them, oh.
There was no allowance for other board members under other business, and I have an issue, a question that I'd like to raise this too, and it would deal with our solicitor, I guess, in his hands, in that the base program is under contract, and there is a matter of the fee, and the rental for facilities, which was an issue last year, and there was certainly, comments by those sitting on the board at the time that we would revisit that. Now, I would like to ask the solicitor to review that, let us know what our options are at this point in time. I know the end of this month is a crucial date. As I recall, and it is my belief, that we simply have to serve notice. That doesn't mean we have to reach any conclusions, that we have to change a thing. We can maintain it exactly as it is, but in order to open the window of opportunity to at least reconsider all of the terms of the contract, we'd have to serve notice by the end of the month. And I'd like to review that, see if that's true, see if we have to come back into a formal motion, or if it's a matter of a letter to the vendor, to the provider, and
Yeah, I can't answer that
advise
right now.
because it's a short time.
No, I can answer that right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Mr. Sierpinski brought to my attention the base contract agreement, and I did have the opportunity to review that in the last couple of days.
Okay, I haven't heard.
It requires, and let me get to the exact section, because I know exactly the nature of the question. It says this agreement shall be automatically renewed for succeeding one-year terms unless the school board has made a determination by February 1 of each year. Notice of same shall be given to provider by February 1 that additional proposals will be invited for review and possible award. So that would have to be done by February 1. I believe after having reviewed this, Mr. Sierpinski and I both understood that provision well. And Vince, you can say what your recommendation is with respect to this, but
Yeah.
You also provided me with a lot of detail from Mr. Wood's office concerning the cost.
You want me to address that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Because the time frame that we had, we didn't have a chance to formally review it at a committee status. But I had talked to our Executive Director of Sports Services to review any changes in our costs that might want to be reflected in our contract and some of the other finer points of the contract with the solicitor. And at this point, I'm really not ready to make a recommendation that we change the program.
Okay, change of program, but what about discussion on the facility charges? We were going to just automatically, a board, a collective body, we've come to an agreement to let it self-renew through default, or by tacit support through silence.
No, wait,
Why not?
the agreement itself says that. In other words, this was a decision that was made by the board at a time when this agreement was passed. The agreement says that it's self-renewing unless
Right.
you do something. Unless you do something
Right,
else.
unless we take a positive action, or take an action, and that's what I guess I'm wondering, because we were definitely said that we would revisit this year, and now it really was not even introduced for board discussion or business, and that's why I asked you, because I had not heard that.
Well,
you
any
were
board member that would wish to
reviewing
change the program, the
Well, it's
process,
not a
the
matter
fees,
of
or anything
program.
could bring it up. Any board member could have brought it up at any time.
But I think,
That's what.
I think the question is, Donna, we have to notify her before February 1st if we're we don't have to tell her what the changes
Contemplating a
are,
change
but that there may
of the
be
rate.
some change, we have to get a letter out, otherwise it automatically
Right.
renews
So-
itself.
so if any
And I have
board-
that concern as well, because part of what I was gonna get together with Mr. Wood, and part of the one of the facilities committee meetings, was I was going to go over some of these fees with him and explain them a little more in detail to us, and just make sure that, we're being realistic with our fees, that was all.
Well,
But even if we don't do anything about it, I think if we're just even thinking about some things, we have to notify her in case something does come up. Otherwise, it's automatic, am I correct, Mr. Solicitor, automatically self-renews?
Yes, if the board does not take action by February 1st, it is renewed for another term. And term is
But we
1
don't
year.
have to tell her in the letter,
Exactly what we're
just what
doing.
it is, it's just that we're looking at a couple areas
Well,
where it may be.
actually, what the motion should say is exactly what the contract says. And the contract says the agreement shall be automatically renewed for succeeding 1-year term unless the school board, and here's what you have to do, has made a determination by February 1st of each year. Notice of same shall be given to provider by February 1, that additional proposals will be invited for review and possible award. So if it were to be your decision that you wish to essentially negotiate new provisions, quite frankly, I would suggest that one of the provisions that you would negotiate is this one, because it's not exactly what you're saying, Pat. Normally, these contracts carry with them a provision that says it will self-renew unless you advise of additional terms. And then if you advise of additional terms, then she would have X number of days to come back and either accept or reject, or they would become part of the contract. Something along that line. That's not what this says, but if you were to give this type of a notice, it would give you the opportunity to negotiate something like that. However, the real issue is whether you want to make any changes at all. If the majority of the board wants to make changes, then I would suggest that you pass that motion this evening. If the majority of the board agrees with the contract as it's written to continue for another term, then there's no need to do that.
I believe that there are many aspects of that contract. That contract was written and a gun was to our head on timelines, and I've heard it
It's
for
every
3
year.
years in a row. And one of the first things I would change is the timeline, because every other year, you're operating with a new board that's still catching its breath when a timeline hits. And switching that very basic fact, it seems to me that by design, we are at a disadvantage in having an adequate discussion on this contract year after year after year.
Is it your contention that if the costs are higher, that you would want to raise the cost to the parents of the approximately 1,200 students that are participating?
No, Frank, no. This is a profit-making organization.
But if any cost is
And I
raised, it's going to
believe-
be passed on to the parents.
Well, I
business usually
believe,
works, Frank.
Frank, when you get into competitive, if you open it up for at least the sense of competition, that may in self be correcting of
This is a
the
significant
districts.
benefit of over 1,200
Absolutely.
students.
Frank, no one is
Parents.
saying it's not. But at the same time, the margin of profit exists for the provider. And certainly, if in fact you at least allow for the discussion of what is equitable for the taxpayers, the general tax-paying community for this district, as well as the services that are being provided for the students, you're gonna have more reasonable rates. And I say there are aspects, and I'm not even saying whether or not we would need to go out there and consider a switch in the services,
But I do believe it's time for the board to have some serious discussions regarding the terms of this contract.
Mr. Sher, do you have a motion or a suggestion?
Well,
Bartle, how would we need
would you
to?
prefer that I write
Right.
the motion?
At least allow for the opportunity for further dialogue. If we take no action, the door is closed on that. We could leave the door open and maybe never walk through in the next 2 months, but at least we have the opportunity to give consideration to
Mr. Bartle. Sure. Mr. Bartle, is that one section that you read just specific to going out for
That's
bid,
the
or
problem.
is there any other provision in the contract which would allow us to sit and possibly negotiate the rates that she's paying us without going out?
So it's a very good question, and I read the contract. There is not another provision that talks about the changes of certain sections. It's just really a matter of semantics. If you provide the appropriate notice that is called for in the contract, then it certainly will allow you to negotiate with the current provider with respect to these particular matters. So I wouldn't really get hung up on the language, but what I read to you is what must be strictly followed in terms of your motion.
Can I ask you, Mr. Bartle, this is your review after the fact it was signed. In your opinion, is that contract a legal and sound document? And it wasn't written, it wasn't passed through a solicitor. It was written by an administrator, not a legal advisor of the district.
Is it a legally? I'm sorry,
Well,
Lydia has
I
her
won't
hand
say
up
if
over
it's
here.
legal.
Is it a legally sound document? I mean, I can read it and understand it. Whether there are better deals to be had out there, I'd have to know more about the factual basis of the contract.
And what the intent was at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Rather than just reading the document, I can certainly understand what it says, and it seems to make sense.
Oh, I know what it says.
Solicitor, if you would read the motion,
The holes
this
in
young
that.
lady has told us we have 5 minutes. If you would read
Okay.
the motion and see if it lives or dies. 4 minutes, thank you, young lady.
I move that the Board of School Directors of the North Penn School District provide notice on or before February 1st to the provider under the agreement between the North Penn School District and Enrichment Workshop for Children Incorporated.
Are you looking for her name?
I'm looking for a date, the last date of this agreement. Well, in any event, we only have one contract. Under that agreement, that additional proposals will be invited for review and possible award pursuant to
Okay, folks, I'm going to intervene. Solicitor, if you would continue to prepare that, we are going to take a break. I believe what time is left, it keeps clicking away and it would cut right into the middle of this action. So we'll take a 5-minute recess.
It's almost
Okay, folks, we're back. We took a 5-minute, 10-minute recess. Tapes are changed. Thank you, young lady, for the very late notice. We're sorry we dragged on like that. Solicitor, you were reading a potential motion.
Yeah, I'll start the motion over. I don't really remember
Please.
exactly where I was. The motion should read, I move that the North Penn Board of School Directors provide notice on or before February 1, 1998 to the provider under agreement between the North Penn School District and Enrichment Workshop for Children Incorporated pursuant to paragraph 4D5 thereof, that additional proposals will be invited for review and possible award.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Mosey. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Roll call. Mrs. Hatfield?
Allen?
No.
Hill?
No?
Krieger?
No.
Mosey?
Yes.
O'Donnell?
No.
Scher?
Yes.
Sherpinski?
No.
Schilling?
No.
Mangle?
No.
2 yeses, 7 noes.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else, please?
Ms. Mayor, just
Yes.
subsequent to that, I would like to suggest that this particular issue now move to the committee, structure for review. I'd like them to take a look, I'd like the committee to take a look at the current program along with the current agreement, and with a full review by the committee of the provisos in that agreement, along with the rates and fees that are assessed at this time and possibly in the future. And I'd like them to come back with a recommendation way before the beginning of the school year, perhaps, or maybe September or October, so that if there is notice to be given, that we can give ample notice.
Vince will be happy to do that.
The committee.
Thanks, Don.
And I'd like you to know, I've asked Carol to do a review. I think financial analysis should be done by a financial director, and she's just been awaiting the internal information. The door is closed on that at this point in time. However, I am finance and going to ask that we do a review of the financial costs.
Well, that's not close at all.
Those you can
Finance
review anytime you want.
can do anything it wants, anytime it wants to produce any kind of work.
No, I mean,
No, the
as far as the
contract is
internal
closed now.
information regarding the
You don't let
big
it roll
program
over
and
this year.
operation.
We can still put such a document together. It's always
Yeah.
informational and.
We will, there has
you
not
know,
been time.
I move to adjourn.
Well, it's been a whole year. Is there a move for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
Second.